Welcome back to Passport to Possibility. If you have European roots and you're considering citizenship by investment, whether in the Caribbean, Vanuatu, El Salvador, São Tomé Príncipe, or even Serbian citizenship by exception, you might be wondering which to prioritise first. Today I'm with Jennifer to help you think through that decision in a structured way. Let's get into it. Jennifer, who are the real-world clients that find themselves choosing between citizenship by investment on one side and EU Ancestry on the other?
Yeah, so they're often entrepreneurs, professionals, or internationally mobile families with European roots who want both short-term flexibility and long-term rights. And some are looking at one or more citizenship by investment programs, whether that's the Caribbean, Vanuatu, El Salvador, São Tomé Príncipe, or Serbian citizenship by exception, while also exploring at the same time whether they have Irish, Italian, Polish, or Hungarian ancestry, which could ultimately lead to EU citizenship.
Right, so this is really for globally minded people with heritage in Europe and an eye on modern citizenship by investment options who don't want to make a random choice. They want a plan that connects both sides. At a high level, how do you compare what someone gains from citizenship by investment generally versus EU citizenship by descent?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So citizenship by investment, whether it's in the Caribbean, Vanuatu, São Tomé Príncipe, or El Salvador, like we've mentioned, or other jurisdictions, usually offers a structured investment-based path with defined timelines for citizenship by investment and specific mobility benefits. Versus EU citizenship by descent focuses on proving your family's story and gaining access to EU rights, which often involves more detailed documentation across different generations and time, but can be very powerful once it's granted.
Right, so citizenship by investment is an investment timeline-driven route where you choose a program, invest, and follow a clear process. EU Ancestry is heritage-driven, aimed at deep long-term rights within Europe. Okay. When people compare citizenship by investment with an EU Ancestry route, what do they most often overlook or underestimate?
I think that people often underestimate how demanding ancestry documentation can be, especially when records can span multiple countries, languages, and legal systems. And on the other side, they can sometimes overlook the non-financial commitments in citizenship by investment, such as the sometimes requirement of physical presence and the need for a long-term compliant relationship with the country where they acquired citizenship.
So the blind spot is thinking that it's just a case of gathering a few certificates and thinking CBI is just wiring money. In reality, both paths are more involved, just in different ways.
Exactly.
How does age or life stage change the decision between citizenship by investment and EU Ancestry?
Yeah, so for younger clients or those with school-aged children, often they place more weight on EU Ancestry because of the long-term education work and settlement prospects of Europe. So if someone really wants to go to Europe or live in Europe, then this is an option. Clients closer to retirement or whose main concern is immediate mobility and risk management, they may lean more towards citizenship by investment because it's quicker and it also builds flexibility while they can still explore ancestry in their background.
Right. So if you're earlier in your journey and thinking about decades in Europe, ancestry naturally comes to the foreground. If you're later in life and need a practical safety net sooner, a well-chosen citizenship by investment program can sensibly and reasonably come first. Building on that, in what situations do you see clients sensibly choosing a citizenship by investment route first, even if an EU Ancestry route might also be available?
Yeah, so choosing CBI first can make more sense when someone needs a clearer, faster path to a safety net, perhaps through a Caribbean program, Vanuatu, El Salvador, São Tomé Príncipe, as we've mentioned, because of business, travel, political risk, or personal security options. And then it's also useful where the ancestry route is viable but expected to be slower, complex due to missing records, multi-country documentation or backlogs in processing? Because sometimes we see 1 to 3 year processing time for citizenship by descent.
Right, so that's a CBI route now, Ancestry later scenario. Use an appropriate CBI program to secure structure and protection in the near term, whilst the more detailed EU heritage file is quietly built in the background. There's a perception that CBI is expensive and Ancestry is cheap or free. In real life, is one path genuinely or generally more expensive than the other?
Yeah, so CBI involves more clear fees, upfront investment amounts, and fees that can look high, but the process is structured and the timeline's more predictable. And yes, it's true that citizenship by investment is a more costly option. The Ancestry route may not require a fixed investment, but the costs of long timelines, research, translations, apostles, you may have to travel. These can add up for some families, so the time cost is just as significant as the financial one for some families.
So citizenship by investment has obvious price tags, but less hidden time costs, whilst Ancestry often looks cheaper on paper, but can be expensive in terms of time, complexity, and opportunity cost if it drags on for years. So when does it make sense for a family to focus on EU citizenship by descent first, before citizenship by investment?
Yeah, so if there's an ancestral link and it's clear and the documents are accessible and the main goal is long-term EU settlement or education, Ancestry is often the natural first move. However, some families prefer to invest their time and resources into one strong EU application and only consider CBI later if they have specific reasons to diversify their citizenship profile.
So if your EU case is clean and your dream is centered on Europe itself, it often makes sense to execute that well first and treat CBI, whether Caribbean, Vanuatu, São Tomé Príncipe, or as an optional extra, not an automatic step. Could you share one anonymized example of a client who did the EU route first, CBI optional, without naming the exact programs?
Yeah, so one client that I can think of that did citizenship by investment route to secure a reliable base and better mobility for business while simultaneously gathering documents and records from complex Italian ancestry file. And what I mean by the client, we helped a lot with the documents and gathering all the documents for it. So we're very hands-on in all citizenship by descent applications. Another family with very clear Irish documentation, they decided to focus entirely on the EU path. And only after resolving their European status did they revisit whether or not an additional citizenship by investment would add anything meaningful to them. So these are examples, just a few anonymized examples.
So the order is, in short, very personal.
Yeah, it's very personal.
Some people stabilize the situation first through a well-chosen citizenship by investment process, and then patiently pursue an EU passport while others prioritize the EU pathway first, and only look at CBI if there's a genuine strategic reason. Right. For someone who has watched this and recognizes themselves in this example, or these examples I should say, what is the very first step they should take, and who should resist the urge to rush into either option?
Yeah, so great question. So the first step is to map out your full picture, your ancestry, your current passports, your business and family situation, and your real timelines rather than chasing the most popular program. So people who are uncertain about their long-term goals or who are hoping for a quick fix without engaging with documentation and compliance should slow down and get proper advice first before committing to either an ancestry route or a CBI program. They are time-consuming. There is quite a bit of documentation involved in compliance requirements.
So the immediate action then is not to pick a country, it's to have a structured conversation about your goals and constraints, and only then decide whether CBI or EU ancestry, or a combination perhaps, sequenced correctly actually makes sense for you. If you'd like help mapping that out, Jennifer's team can look at your ancestry, your risk profile, and your interest in citizenship by investment, and give you a realistic path forward. All the contact details plus links to our other videos on EU ancestry and various citizenship by investment options Jennifer advises on are in the description. Thanks for joining us on another Passport to Possibility.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.